Tanse, hello and bonjour. We acknowledge that the land on which we gather is a traditional meeting ground and home for many Indigenous peoples, including Cree, Saulteaux, Blackfoot, Métis, and Nakota Sioux. We are grateful for the traditional knowledge keepers and elders who are with us today, and those who have gone before us, and the youth who inspire us. A tradition that dates back centuries, land recognition now calls us to acknowledge that we are Treaty 6 people, to remember our responsibility to deepen our understanding of the treaty, to participate in and support the ongoing process of truth, reconciliation, and healing.
Now it's my turn. Welcome to Westwood, everyone. Everyone joining us online, and those of you who are right here in person. We're very happy to see you. We are a Unitarian Universalist congregation, one of many congregations across the country and the world, supporting each other in our own spiritual journeys, drawing on the wisdom of many religions and guided by our shared principles, which are on the walls around the room for those of you who are here. We are a community open to all races, genders, sexual orientations, ages, abilities, and incomes. We extend a special welcome to anyone who is here for the first time, or if, like me, you haven't been around for a while, and I see a few other faces, welcome back. Welcome back. Okay. To receive information about our upcoming services and events, you can sign up through our website, westwoodunitarian.ca, very simple, to receive the post updates. They aren't very frequent, but they'll come straight to your inbox, and so it's easier than having to check there all the time. My name is Brenda Jackson. My pronouns are she and her. I sing with our wonderful choir, Harmonia. We're a friendly bunch, and we welcome anyone to join us on Tuesday nights for practice. If you like to sing, there are no, you don't have to take a test. Just come. 6:30. We are accompanied by our fabulous director, Rebecca Patterson, and our amazing pianist, Julie Forbes, at the piano. We are your service leaders this week, and we're glad you joined us here today. Our tech team consists of Julie and Mitch in person and Bill Lee in the Zoom room. Our much appreciated coffee host is David Williamson, and we have a lot going on today. As you've heard, there's potluck lunch after the service, and you didn't have to bring anything. It really, really is okay if you didn't bring anything, just stay for lunch. There's always lots. As Sarah said, we want you to take home your leftovers, so obviously there's always lots. After lunch, you're invited to stay for the Art of Healing for Justice, an art-making workshop led by today's speaker, the Reverend Karen Fraser Gitlitz. Karen Fraser Gitlitz, pronouns are she and her, is a Unitarian Universalist minister and a professional art therapist. After serving UU congregations in Nanaimo and Saskatoon, as well as shorter contracts with Salt Spring Island and Regina, Karen and her partner Paul Gitlitz relocated to the Saanich Peninsula on southern Vancouver Island, BC. The traditional territory of the WSÁNEĆ people, which includes the Tsartlip and Sayot, thank you so much. I did try and practice, Sayot First Nations. Karen continues to support Canadian UU congregations through the Meaning Making Project while developing her private practice through creative upwelling art therapy and deepening her exploration of the intersection between spirituality, the arts, and social justice. So we'll be hearing from her later.
Our first song that we're going to join together to sing this morning is When Our Heart is in a Holy Place by Jane Poley. And I would invite you to rise in body or in spirit.
I will be reading a poem by Laurel Bogle called Outside Inside. The flags fly down the highway, hanging onto the back of large trucks or the chest of a man. Outside there is grabbing and taking, a staking and restaking of territory claimed, the roads cut, the oil burned, blockades erected, and walls built. Outside, the borders between us are made visible in noise, colors, ballots, signs, and signals. Inside resides the breath of common ancestors, the child who plays with no thought of malice, the heart tuned towards suffering, the taste of figs ripening in the lingering autumn heat, the silver of an orange moon low in the evening November sky. Inside begins something you might call a prayer. Let us kneel down, not to God or nation or ideology, but to what is inside, a feeling, a connection, a welling like the waters at the very beginning of time, unpolluted and gently flowing, sweet and dark and healing. Let us kneel down to the persistent possibility that the life and love within prevail. Let us release what is inside outward in beauty, spilling toward each of us until all merges. Unstoppable well of knowing that we will only ever be saved by one another.
Candles of Joy and Concern is a moment in our week that gives us the opportunity to express and witness with our hearts the joyful celebrations and tender, heavy-hearted moments that affirm our collective human experience and remind us that we are not alone. And I'd like to light one last candle for those of us who are holding our joys and concerns sweetly in our souls.
So I'm delighted to be with you this morning. As James mentioned, I was here in Edmonton for the CUC board meeting, and I reached out to your congregation, and you said, yes, we would love to see you on Sunday morning. So thank you for the invitation to be here in person. This is a story by Peter Reynolds, and it's a little bit of a retelling of it, and it might be familiar to you. The story is called Ish. It's a story about a young boy, very small boy, by the name of Ramon. Ramon liked to go for walks in the woods, and Ramon would see things, a leaf, a tree, a squirrel, and he wanted to draw them. So he came home. He didn't want to draw in the living room because there were people there. He didn't want to draw in the kitchen because somebody might walk in. So he found some paper, and he found a pencil, and he went up into his bedroom, and he closed the door. He sat down at the table and thought, I am going to draw. And he tried to draw a leaf. It didn't really look like a leaf, so he crumpled up the paper and threw it away. And he thought, oh, there was a squirrel. And he thought, squirrel? I know what a squirrel looks like, but when he started to draw, he couldn't quite figure out where all the pieces of the squirrel were, and it didn't look like a squirrel, it looked like an amoeba with a couple of hands and a fuzzy tail. And he was starting to get annoyed because he wanted to draw. And he crumpled it up and threw it away. And then he thought, over there's a vase. I'm just going to draw a vase. But it looked like the vase was sort of falling over on one side, and that was really frustrating. And he started pressing harder and harder and crumpling the paper, and he was throwing all the paper all over the place. And all of a sudden the door opened. Now Ramon had a little sister. Ramon said, go away. And his little sister, you can guess, little sister did not go away. Little sister came in and said, what is going on? And started unfolding the things. And she kind of went down and she pressed them, like they were all crumpled up, and she pressed them out. And Ramon got mad and said, no, they're wrong, they're bad, and he crumpled it up and threw it away. Go out. Mom, she's bothering me again. Little sister left. And Ramon was sad and almost wanted to cry because he had these things that he wanted to do, and it didn't look anything like what he imagined in his head. So he gathered them all up and he chucked them in the garbage can, and he walked away. And then they had family dinner or whatever, and some things were going on. It wasn't until later that evening that he went back into his bedroom. And what did he see? But all the drawings had been carefully smoothed out and been taped to the wall. Probably not painter's tape, but we won't worry about that in this particular moment. And he stood there, and his sister came in, and she said, what's that? And it was the vase that was sort of falling sideways. And he said, well, it was supposed to be a vase, but it doesn't look like one. And she said, well, it's vase-ish. And he looked at it again and thought, well, you could kind of see that there was sort of a vase there. And then she said, what's this? To the amoeba with the little hands and the big fluffy tail. And he said, oh, I hate that one. That was supposed to be a squirrel. And she said, well, I see the tail. That's a tail. That's a squirrel tail. It's squirrel-ish. And they went through all the things, and she just said, It's leaf-ish. And he sat there and thought, oh, I can do things that are ish. And then Ramon started to draw. He drew dinosaur-ish dinosaurs. He drew a sister-ish sister. And all over the house were drawings by Ramon. Squirrel-ish, vase-ish, leaf-ish, dinosaur-ish, sister-ish, family-ish. Ramon could do ish. And that's our story. Thank you.
We're going to sing again. How could anyone? Please rise in body or in spirit.
I have a reading from Big Magic, Creative Living Beyond Fear by Elizabeth Gilbert, 2016. Are you considering becoming a creative person? Too late. You already are one. To even call somebody a creative person is almost laughably redundant. Creativity is the hallmark of our species. We have the sense for it. We have the curiosity for it. We have the opposable thumbs for it. We have the rhythm for it. We have the language and the excitement and the innate connection to divinity for it. If you're alive, you're a creative person. You and I and everyone you know are descended from tens of thousands of years of makers, decorators, tinkerers, storytellers, dancers, explorers, fiddlers, drummers, builders, growers, problem solvers, and embellishers. These are our common ancestors. The guardians of high culture will try to convince you that the arts belong only to a chosen few, but they are wrong, and they are also annoying. We are all the chosen few. We are all makers by design. Even if you grew up watching cartoons in a sugar stupor from dawn to dusk, creativity still lurks within you. Your creativity is way older than you are, way older than any of us. Your very body and your very being are perfectly designed to live in collaboration with inspiration, and inspiration is still trying to find you, the same way it hunted down your ancestors.
We're
We're going to pause now for a moment of silence, following these words by Rosemary Watola-Cromer. You might want to take a moment to make yourself more comfortable. You could lower your gaze or close your eyes or find something to engage your hands, whatever helps you to most settle into the silence. Please, by Rosemary Watola-Cromer. If you are one who has practiced meeting the pain of the world, we need you. Right now, we need you to teach us it is possible to swallow what is weighty and still be able to rise. We need you to remind us we can be furious and scared and near feral over injustice and still thrill at the taste of a strawberry ripe and sweet. Can still meet a stranger and shake their hand, believing in their humanness. We need you to show us how we too can fall into the darkest unplumbed pit and learn there a courage and beauty we could never learn from the light. If you have drowned in sorrow and still have somehow found a way to breathe, please lead us. You are the one with the crumbs we need, the ones we will use to find our way back to the home of our hearts. You are the ones with the crumbs we need, the ones we will use to find our way back to the home of our hearts. We are the ones with the crumbs we need, the ones we will use to find our way back to the home of our hearts. I never set out to be an art therapist. I was a UU parish minister, looking for ways to deepen and strengthen my skills, and I had a hunch that art making was something that might be helpful. I had looked at the people I admired, leaders in social justice circles, and I saw that my leadership wasn't where it needed to be helpful to the people I was serving. I wanted to be more useful in cross-cultural spaces, and less of a burden to those who were having to kind of catch me up. A good friend came back from a workshop that she'd taken, and she said, "Karen, this is you. You have to take this workshop." It was an expressive arts weekend taught by a Métis artist and activist, Fiery Jean Graveline. I had to phone the school to get permission to take the workshop, and ended up, at the end of that conversation, applying to do a diploma in art therapy in the school's brand new program that was social justice focused and led mostly by Indigenous instructors. when one of my art therapy instructors observed that there might be a connection between the work that I wanted to do, uncolonizing or reconciliation work, and the path of another member of my cohort, Carrie Jeanette Sinclair, a Cree woman who was exploring her own decolonizing journey, I want to say I leapt at the opportunity, but I also was really nervous. It was sort of like can we do this? Also, I had started the program in July of 2020 when I'd been told, we're going to be online for a couple of weeks. Yeah, we were not. So all of a sudden I needed to figure out an online practicum. And Carrie also needed to figure that out. So we had a conversation and we decided to offer a small group experience in unsettling our spirituality. And we were grateful that Joan Carolyn, who was then a staff person at the Canadian Unitarian Council, made space for us to do this. So she supervised our practicum, that part of it, and she offered the group through the Canadian Unitarian Council, and it sold out in 2 weeks. By the end of our studies, we'd offered the group 3 times and found it enormously beneficial, at least for ourselves. So we decided to turn the work into a shared research project. After obtaining the necessary approvals, because you can't use research for things that weren't intentional about being research, we figured out that what we would do was ask everybody back who had taken a part in a workshop and see if they would come to a focus group where we could learn something, we hoped. So we nervously sent out the emails, and yes, in fact, we filled 3 focus groups with previous attendees at our workshops. One of the things that showed up for many, many of the participants was a feeling of surprise. Surprise that this thing about art and social justice actually worked. That was us too. And surprise that when we used the art therapy processes to explore some of our feelings about sometimes what had been painful or difficult cross-cultural encounters, that the answers that came back surprised us. They were often, what came up were often experiences from our own past, or maybe our family's history. Experiences that had some sort of resonance with whatever difficult situation that we'd been in. And sometimes we hadn't even realized that resonance at the time. What we found was that there were little pieces of ourselves that needed just a little bit of attention and care, perhaps healing. Some people in the focus group asked questions like, is this even reconciliation work? Is it? The work that each person needed to do was unique to them. Their history, their identity, their life experience. It was personal and intimate, but it was also political and systemic, because this is how colonization and oppression show up in our lives. It's in the daily stuff. It's entwined with everything else. Somehow the act of making art helped us make connections with the parts of ourselves that needed attention. So Carrie and I, we're so grateful for all the Unitarians who showed up for us and helped us do this thing. And then in our kind of theoretical part of the work, we were trying to figure out, well, what is going on here? And what I want to share today is just like one piece of that. So Anjan Chatterjee studies what happens in the brain when we have a felt response to an artistic aspect of our environment or something we ourselves have made, whether it's writing or music or visual arts or photography or dance or drama or decorating cookies. An aesthetic response is a reaction to something we perceive to be beautiful or moving or in some way significant. It starts with sensations and emotions before it moves into conscious thinking. And it might be something that we return back to over the course of a day or even later in life. In non-academic language, we're talking about an experience that stays with us. And Chatterjee developed a 3-part model for understanding this kind of experience. The first part is the sensory information or input. Something happens that engages our senses. So you might not know, but in the late 20-teens, I spent several years recovering from a brain injury. One of the modalities that I used was vision therapy, taught in Canada at the School of Optometry at the University of Waterloo. Luckily, I found a vision therapist in the city where I was living, so I didn't have to go to Waterloo because it's a very time-consuming therapy. One of the first 3 treatments I received involved coming to the clinic 4 or 5 days a week and spending 20 minutes looking down a tube that looked sort of like a reverse telescope and concentrating on the little illuminated circle that I saw at the end of the tube and watching as it changed colors. I was encouraged to listen to calming music or guided meditations while I was spending this 20 minutes watching the colors change. Our senses are remarkably keen to changes in vibration and frequency. Focusing on a circle of light that fluctuates between colors can encourage a nervous system that has gotten stuck in the fight or flight response. So the colors we're cycling through on and off, trying to get me to go on and off. I didn't notice anything happening at first until my partner pointed out that every time he picked me up from vision therapy, we got into an argument on the way home. Apparently, I left the clinic a tad defensive. When I mentioned this to the visions therapist, I was sort of making an offhand comment about my partner doesn't like these appointments, and she immediately picked up on the implications. All I was doing was ratcheting myself up. And so she changed the frequency of the colors that I was looking at and adjusted it and said, tell me what happens after today. Yet don't wait a week to tell me again. And over time, she was able to adjust so that there was more cycling on and off and less defensiveness and kind of a feeling of combative being attacked when I left the clinic. And definitely an improvement from my partner's perspective. In the past decade, there has been an incredibly dramatic growth in our understanding of how the brain receives cues and information from our environment. A great book that explains some of this in layperson's terms is Your Brain on Art by Susan Magsamen and Ivy Ross. I'm sure I'm not the only one who's been deeply engrossed in something so that I don't hear what another person is telling me. It turns out that our ear in relationship to our brain, it's actually a two-way relationship. And our brain cannot tell our ear to dampen down certain frequencies. That has a lot of implications that I won't go into here. But what I want to say is that what we might think of as sensory information is actually a complex series of interactions. And this system of relationships is one part of Anjan Chatterjee's triad, the aesthetic response triad. The second part is the brain's reward system. Certain types of responses generate a reward. Think of the pleasure of drinking a cool glass of water when hot and thirsty. We learn that what we want is a cool glass of water. Our brains require a lot of energy. So our brains strive to be as efficient as possible. When sensory information results in a pleasure response, the brain takes notice and prioritizes that connection. Similarly, if sensory information does not result in a pleasure response, the connection can be identified as less important, and the brain might eventually prune that link. So the third part of the aesthetic response is our personal and cultural context, where we live, who our people are, our personal life history. This is the meaning-making part of the aesthetic response. Colors and images have associations that can be deeply personal, referencing our life experiences. They can also be cultural and they can change over time. Take the color orange, which is closely linked with the fruit of the same name. It was also the color of Phyllis Webstad's famous, now infamous, favorite shirt, which was taken away from her when she went to residential school. She later talked about what the color orange meant to her because of that experience. The association changed. And because of the support that she received later and the way that other people picked up on this story and created the orange shirt movement, we are part of changing the association with that color. As an art therapist, I bring groups of people together to make things. Sometimes there's an energy in a group. It happens most often when everyone is fully present, fully engaged in whatever they're making. I've seen this happen with groups of all ages, children, youth, young, middle, and older adults. It doesn't matter whether people think of themselves as an artist or not, because it's not about what is made as much as the experience of making it. We sort around, we have a project, we find some materials. Sometimes people get into it right away. Other times it takes a couple of starts before they can find something that they're enjoying doing it. But at some point, there's a moment, if we're lucky, in the room where everybody is engaged at the same time. When we make things, we're in relationship with ourselves and the tools and the materials. And sometimes that allows something inside us to open up. It doesn't matter whether the results look like art or not. It's about the quality of the presence, of our presence in that moment. Artists sometimes talk about being overtaken by an idea or having something come through them. Even if there's only one person in the room, it can feel like a co-creation or a partnership. Some understand it as a connection with our higher selves or a collective energy. Others experience it as a connection with the divine. Whatever it is, however we name it, this is part of our shared humanity, a capability that we have simply by being human and being able to make. Aesthetic responses have the power to shape us. They literally can create new pathways in our brains. They shape how we notice, what we notice, and how we pay attention to the world. Making and knowing are part of being human.
is going to do another reading for us. Bill, just wait until we give you a signal. Okay, Bill.
A reading from the late Ursula K. Le Guin. This is from her acceptance speech when she was awarded the National Book Foundation Medal for Distinguished Contribution to American Letters. She says, "Hard times are coming when we will be wanting the voices of writers who can see alternatives to how we live now, can see through our fear-stricken society and its obsessive technologies to other ways of being, and even imagine real grounds for hope. We need writers who can remember freedom, poets, visionaries, realists of a larger reality."
Last spring, there was a show of Merrill McMaster's photography at the Art Gallery of Greater Victoria. McMaster is Nehiyah and Siksika. She's from Red Pheasant First Nation and also has British and Dutch ancestry. The images she creates are large, several feet high by several feet wide. She is both subject and photographer. In one of her earlier pieces, which was created before the advent of Photoshop, historical photos of Indigenous people are placed on top of images of herself and her father. There was something compelling about the resulting image, a feathering of the features that drew my attention. I try to separate the differences and similarities, but I'm not able. So I keep looking, trying to figure it out. In more recent work, McMaster stands within large landscapes, wearing clothing she has crafted and holding or using crafted objects. In one photograph, she stands behind tall grasses, seed heads dried and golden. She is looking at wire which she has twisted to take the shape of plants that used to grow on the prairies before most of it was plowed under for fields. Golden powder, looking like pollen, dusts her skin. In McMaster's hands and in her vision and her photography, the history of hardship is real. In one photograph, a reimagining of her grandmother's story, a train pass, a symbol of the pass system on the prairies, which confined First Nations people to reserves, is visible in the twist of fabric on her arm. But in the hands of McMaster, the pass is both a limitation and a strategy, a token tied close to be used to achieve her desires. The history of trauma is real and personal in intimate detail, and so is the history of strength and love and action. What speaks to me in the works of McMaster is the role of art as an intervention in the flow of meaning. The artist makes a space where they and we can investigate, question, disrupt, prod, and reformulate. Beauty has a role. It draws us in, bringing its own form of healing. I know that there is much in McMaster's work that passes by me, unless someone explains the references. McMaster is showing us something, but on her own terms. I think this is what Anishinaabe musician, writer, and academic Leanne Simpson calls generative refusal. A refusal as much as possible to live and create on the terms of settler colonialism. Not so much a turning back to culture, but a bringing forward of culture. As a white, middle-class woman, I am not the primary recipient of McMaster's art. I'm not the ideal intended viewer, and that is okay. It's good. The work invites me to learn and appreciate and understand that I am apart from it, but can still be inspired by it. McMaster's work inspires me to do my own work of looking at my history and identifying that I can re-history myself, so I am less complicit in oppression. And I just heard before the service from Sarah that you are doing some work to understand the history of this land that this congregation is on, and I am so thrilled to hear that and look forward to seeing what comes from that project. What my research partner, Carrie Sinclair, and I found, what our researcher artists found, is that there is a surprising amount of healing, joy, and energy for all of us in this work. We do not need to be artists to use art for healing and joy and research. If it helps, think of it as making. There is a human history of making. And I think if we think about it, we are all makers in some way. Liberation is for all of us. And it is led by those with the skills and experience that come from a lifetime of lived experience. We are not the first people to go through difficult times, to see changes in society that we find disturbing or concerning. In times such as this, it's important to remember that there is a history of human beings responding to difficult times. We are not alone. We have each other here. We have ancestry that has resilience in it, and I know it does because you are here physically, and you would not be if your ancestors had not been. I am glad that you are here to support one another, to make, to know, and dream together with each other in this time, on this land, and with all the beings who live on this land. May you make and know and dream and find joy and connection in the work. Amen. Blessed be.
Thank you so much, Karen. And I'm so looking forward to our workshop that everyone is invited to this afternoon, right after our potluck lunch. Now we're going to sing When the Spirit Says Do. When the Spirit says make. We can make-ish, right?
You gotta do when the Spirit says do. You gotta do when the Spirit says do. When the Spirit says do, you gotta do.
The closing words are by Paul Robeson. Sorrow will one day turn to joy. All that breaks the heart and oppresses the soul will one day give place to peace and understanding, and everyone will be free.
Doesn't matter what you do or how you make. What matters is that you do it. You find the crumbs and you find the people and make the connections so that we can support one another. And in our spaces and the wider world, keep the flame of hope alive. And I, as a minister trained by many different board treasurers, I am aware that we did not do the offering. We're not going to take time to do it now, but those of you who know how to do it, I invite you to share from the generosity of your hearts.
One we join in song.